and you just answer any way you want to answer. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's just how you feel. Okay. A few years ago, your dad passed away, and it made you so sad. And in this age that we're living in, other little children are losing their parents too, to COVID-19 and some other things, and they're struggling like you used to do. So if you would, just tell us how you felt during that time and what happened to make you feel better.
I felt sad, and it made me feel better the pictures I keep in my book of me and the things I do with him. What makes me feel better to do when I'm sad, draw pictures of the family and stuff, and make art, and spend time with Mommy.
You just recently had a birthday. How did you spend your birthday?
With Luke, Tequila, Dre, Mommy, and my other friends.
What did y'all do?
We played games together. We took pictures.
You made new memories with new friends and the existing family. Okay. Is there anything else you want to tell the other little kids that can help them?
Draw pictures of my family and spend time with them.
Okay. Thank you, Reba. Today we're talking about grief, the loss of a loved one, the challenges that we all face at those difficult times. For me personally, I lost my mother when I was 14. It took me 29 years to come to terms with what I was supposed to do, how I was supposed to do it. I had a 4-year-old brother that I immediately became surrogate parent for. It was a very difficult time, and there were not nearly as many options as there are today. In spite of all of that, I have found in these last months since COVID-19 has been in existence, and we've been having all kinds of problems with that, including death. Some families losing children, some families losing both parents at the same time, some families losing 5 and 6 members of the family at one time. I can't imagine the difficulty that a person would express or have to go through when something like that happened. And at that time, would they know what to do, or would they be in the same situation I was in at 14, loss of my mother, the disappearance of my father, and not really knowing what it is I needed to do. I can tell you one thing, my mother's friends, the neighbors that lived around us, and the people at my high school were very, very instrumental. Pastors were very, very helpful. So I think these things we still need to rely on, but there are a wealth of other opportunities and programs and assistance and foundations that can help us today. I'd like you to meet my second guest today, Ms. Delindra Peterson. She is the owner, founder of OnPoint Network, among other things. And she is also a person who fully understands the loss of someone. She lost a mother, and she was the caregiver. Good morning.
Good morning.
Why don't you just give us a snippet of what is all involved, what kind of emotions go through, what all you have to do when you're the caregiver, when someone is sick and ultimately die, and then you must recover.
Yes. Wow. Being the caregiver means you have to be the strongest person in the room. But ultimately, I feel the person that's going through the illness or the sickness is the strongest person, but you have to be the stronger person when it comes to changing wounds or making sure that they're clean and are trying to eat, because my mother at the time really didn't want to eat. She was at the point where she was just like, I didn't even want to eat a soup or insure or any of those things. So I became a caregiver because she asked us to take her to a nursing home. And my brothers and I, my father, none of us, we were not having that. My brothers and I decided that I would be the person who would stop working, because at the time my brothers were doing major things and I was just really trying to find myself at the time. So I was the person who stopped working. It wouldn't affect. So my brothers paid my salary, and I was at home with my mother when my father was trying to finish his doctorate degree, because that was her goal. She still, even in her sickness, was focused on my father finishing his doctorate degree. So every day I would leave my 2 children with my ex-husband, and I would go and spend the whole day, basically sometimes 8 to 12 hours with my mother, as my father would go to Montgomery. And I would feed her, change her, a lot of times lay beside her and go to sleep, and hopefully make her go to sleep like she used to do to me when I was little. The caregiver becomes like the parent sometimes. If it's the parent that you're taking care of, you feel like you're the parent, and you want to make sure they're taken care of. So I used to just think of things that my mom used to do for me when I was little. Even though I was daddy's little girl, when I got sick, it was mama. Mommy had to be there. So I just started thinking of things that my mom would do for me when I was sick, and I would start doing those things for her. But the kicker was everybody expected me to be the strong person. That was the first thing my mom said to me. She's like, you're going to have to be the stronger person in this situation. She was like, I know your brothers aren't going to be strong, and I know your father isn't. She was like, so when it boils down to it, she said, I know it's going to hurt you. She said, but I need you to cry, and I need you to go get over it. She was like, because I'm not going to make it. So to hear your mother say, she's not going to make it, I can imagine what she was thinking to tell me that. But she said she wasn't going to make it, and she was like, I need you to be the stronger person. So that's what I became. I became Superwoman.
And how many years were you the caregiver?
It lasted about a year and a half. My mother has been ill off and on my whole life. Not to that point where she was at that time. She was a diabetic ever since I can remember. So we were constantly making sure she was eating right. Pretty much everybody had to start eating right. It was times we slipped. But, and then I remember my father telling me there were times before I was even born that she was ill. But when it came down to it started with breast cancer. And it eventually started spreading to her teeth. So when it came to that point, that's when basically everybody had to say, like, no, we got to shut this down. We got to figure this out. We got past the breast cancer, and then it came back and started spreading to her teeth. I don't know how that happened, but it was just something that happened. So, yeah.
So your life was completely uprooted for 1.5 years straight, although it had been affected many years before.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine after she passed, after the homegoing service, after your brother's back at their life, and your dad is operating in his job, what were your days like, and how did you get through it?
Wow, because I was used to not even being a mother, basically. Because when I came home, my kids were asleep. I'm the person that's always busy. I was always, because I wasn't where I should have been at the time. So I was always working 2 or 3 jobs. And to try to get back into that lifestyle was crazy, because I was used to getting up early, going to sit with mom, being there with mom, and then coming home and just kind of laying next to my kids because I didn't see them all day. So I had to try to rebuild my life again. I was still dealing with church because I'm a musician for a church at the time. So I was going to church on Sundays. But everything else, it was just like a blur, trying to figure out, okay, well, now mom is gone. I promised mom I was going to get my life in order. I was going to be the daughter that she expected me to be. So that was my whole goal then. It was like, okay, so how can I rebuild my life again when she's not here? And mom, like, I call myself a builder, but mom was the builder. When you said you wanted to do something, mama was going to get it done. So now I had to become the builder for everybody else. I had to figure out how can I keep everybody together. Mom kept up with the birthdays. Mom kept up with the special occasions. Mom made sure we talked to each other. So now we're scattered and mom's not here. So I had to take that place.
So if you had to name one thing that was your greatest asset at that time, what helped you the most during that transition time, to transition into being a caregiver and to transition out of being a caregiver, what was the thing, that one thing, if you can think of one, just one, that helped you the most?
Honestly, I wish I could say it was God. But at the time, I was still finding my faith. Even though I'm the daughter of a minister and granddaughter and niece, I was still finding my way. I would honestly have to say it was my mom, because she prepared me. And I think a lot of people don't realize it, that even though you might be the person that's sick, you might have to prepare the people that's going to have to take care of you, or your family, for when you're going. You have to make sure they're okay. And that's one thing she did. It's like she knew. And she said to me, because I got mad. I'm like, I was mad at God. So at the time, God couldn't be my faith. I couldn't have the faith in him. And she said to me, she said, I prayed to God for me to take all of your pain, your brothers and your pain away. She was like, so don't be mad at God. She already knew I was mad. So she prepared me for the before and the after, for what I needed to do. So even though you might be the person that might be sick right now, you might have to be preparing your family for the before and the after.
Thank you so much. You've been a great help. I surely hope that those of us who are still living vibrant lives take the time to consider, how will your family and your loved one function when you're no longer here? Be an asset. Plan. Build hope in them for what happens next. How do we cope with the loss of a loved one? Of course, we've had much discussion today and some very good information and advice from our other guests, but I have with me now Miss Trenekia Taylor of the Piedmont Group, a Mass Mutual. She also is the owner of Taylor Brown Brokerage and Financial Solutions. And our purpose today is to talk about how do a family recover when a great loss happens. One of the main things that happen is a loss of major income or high unexpected bills that would bust anybody's budget.
Exactly.
So we want to know real solutions, how a person can prepare, and if they haven't prepared, are you aware of any places that are programs or companies that can help?
Okay, and that's a great question, great discussion. I run into that a lot in my industry, where when I sit down with families, I have a thorough financial discussion with them. I find out what they have, what they're looking for, what their goals are, and I prefer, if it's a couple, that I talk to both of them together. If it's a single parent, I talk to them. But I find out initially, what's your income, what's your budget, and the income thing, I do that primarily because if a primary breadwinner, like you said, if that primary breadwinner is no longer here, then that means that income stops. And life insurance is a tool that you can use to replace that income. So I ask them, how many years, would you want your family to continue to be able to live the way that they're living right now if you were not here tomorrow? And if some people may say 5 years, some people may say 10 years, whatever that amount is, I multiply that by that amount. I come up with a figure based off of that. also their debt, their credit cards, and then that's how we come to the bottom line. A lot of people come in and they talk and they'll say they have this amount of insurance, and I ask them, well, where'd you get that number from? Well, I don't know. And I tell them, well, this is the way we're going to come up with that number. And that way they feel at peace knowing that they've put something in place for their kids to maybe be able to still go to college, for their families to be able to live like this and pay their mortgage and, pay all their bills for the next 5 to 10 years. So it's very important that when someone comes in, you talk to them and you let them know how you're coming up with that number, because it can be detrimental to a family if they lose someone prematurely and they have nothing in place.
I have always had a question lingering in the back of my mind, and in this age of COVID-19 and the loss of family members suddenly, more than one, suddenly, it's coming to the forefront of my mind. I believe I'm an average person, so I believe that other people are interested in that answer too. What are the options for the caregiver? If you're not the primary person in the house, but you're going to be the caregiver, and your life is going to be disrupted.
Exactly.
So how do we financially account for that period when their caregiver is not going to be functional?
Okay, and that's a good question too. And for that, there's two things that I could say that, everyone should kind of put in place. We have long-term disability where, some people's jobs have it, but if you think about it, if you have it through your job, you need to make sure of how much they're paying, because if they're paying just 50% and taxes are cut out of that, then that doesn't end up being enough sometimes to help a family get through that time period. And we also have what we call, which I think is very, very important, because I've had my mom has taken care of so many relatives long-term care, where, it puts a lot on the person physically, mentally. It puts a big burden if, you have to step away from your job. That person's income stops as well. So we have a long-term care program where, you can put that in place, and then if something happens, you can pay for someone else to come in just to simply relieve you, so that you're not the one physically burdened by, this all the time, or you're not financially burdened, or you can actually be paid as well, compensated for the work that you do. So I talk to a lot of people about long-term care, because those are things that we don't think about until it happens, and then everybody's scrambling to see, how are we going to do this? Who's going to step away? Which brother or sister is going to be able to financially do that? Well, there are plans in place to take care of those things before they arise.
Good. The other thing that I believe is a question on the average person mind is, what if you didn't do it when you were young? We know the best time to buy insurance is when you're young.
Yes, it is.
But maybe things were not so that you could do that when you were young. What do you have for people who are technically maybe approaching to be a senior citizen, 50, 55, 60, 65, and even beyond? And is it reasonable to think that you can get affordable, financial protection through insurance if you have waited that late?
You know what? I love that question, because I do have a lot of people that come in and I tell, you can't go back and say what you should have done. It's too late at that point. But we know that it is always great to get it while you're young and healthy. That's the best time. But I service a lot of the older market, like you said, people who are reaching retirement. I mean, this is what I do sometimes. And, even I ask them, once again, I sit down with them and I find out what their budget is, how their health is, because that's going to factor in too. Once you get older, you end up with more health problems, and so, that drives the price up. But we have a lot of products, and different companies have different products that sometimes they cater just to the older market, or they may have like a value whole life product that it's just based off of burial. It doesn't really build a lot of cash value. It's just strictly for burial. So the price is going to be lower. The standards aren't going to be as high. They may not have to do a physical. So there are a lot of things that are out there for individuals that are older. You just have, that's why I tell people, you don't know. Don't assume. You don't know until you come and sit down with somebody. And I'm the type of person, because I really love what I do, I'm going to make sure that I figure out something for you, even if it's through, the different varieties of companies that I can work with.
Is there anything, Ms. Taylor, that you would like to tell people that could help them and help you to help them that we haven't covered already? If you had your 5 minutes of fame, what would you say?
Well, first of all, I want to say that you've asked some very good questions, and I think that that will really help the community right now, because I don't think, if we think about it, there's a law for car insurance. We have to have car insurance. People now, we have to have health insurance. We have to have home insurance. If you're going to insure your home, if something happens, then you want to make sure that you don't have to start from the bottom up. Something happens to your car, you want to make sure that you still have it. Well, why wouldn't you insure the most important thing is your life? To me, we insure everything else. We will even insure a cell phone. But why would you not insure your life? Somebody's going to be burdened by that. Even if you don't have people say, well, you know what, I just want to be cremated. Well, you know what, there's some people that haven't saved up $2,000, $3,000. That's still a burden for them. That's money that could have went towards the next month's mortgage or something else. So it's just important, not education is power. Sit down and speak to someone. And like you said, like I want to reiterate again, insure your life. If you don't take care of anything else, please sit down and talk to somebody about insuring your life.
Thank you for coming today, and thank you for providing us such a wealth of information. And I surely hope that people will take advantage of what you're done. So people, if you're looking for insurance, looking for a way to find comfort at a time when it's not a lot out there, when you've lost someone, whether you're the caregiver, whether it was a family member, whether it was a friend, but you were directly affected, or you witnessed that recently, and they weren't prepared, and when you examine yourself, you're not prepared, then come and see, at least talk to Ms. Taylor at the Piedmont Group, the Mutual Mass Insurance, at Taylor Brown Brokerage and Financial Solution. 334-318-1457, Taylor at financialguide.com. Thank you for joining us today for our first pilot program of Hope with Carol B. Today, it was all about what do you do, what happens when you lose someone you love. If you're the caregiver, if it's your spouse of many, many years, if it's your sibling or your friend or a good neighbor. The loss is great, and it's difficult to deal with. Rely on your family. Rely on God. Rely on your faith. Know that as long as there's life, there's hope. There are a wealth of programs, you've heard of some today, that can help you get through. But in the end, it's you, your faith, and God. He won't leave you. He'll always put somebody in your path that can help you. This is Carol B. Thank you for joining us.